This is the 2022 Hyundai Kona, and it's powered by two different engine choices. There are 3 trim levels in Canada, 4 down in the States, 2 available engine options, and a number of different features. Steve here, Cars with Steve, and before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out and a thank you to Ajax Hyundai for giving me access to this vehicle to shoot the video for you today. Check down in the description below for their contact details. Now this is going to be a super in-depth video teaching you everything you need to know about this vehicle. If you're looking for a quicker walk around, check down in the description below for that quicker walk around instead. But let's dive into it, have a little bit of fun, and see what's going on with the 22 Kona. Starting off with some exterior styling. Like, this thing is nice, it's small, it's compact. So if you're not looking for anything too big, you don't want to jump up into an SUV, this is a nice option. Now looking at the actual tires themselves, you're either going to have a 16, 17, or an 18-inch tire, depending on which trim level of the vehicle you're looking at. Now we're looking at the preferred version of the vehicle, so it's the SEL down in the States, which means that we're looking at a 17-inch tire. But great look, and we've got, like I said, a few different styles that are available depending on the trim level that you're after. Now as we start to move forward, we've got our LED headlamps, and then we do have fog lamps that are available on some trim levels of the vehicle. So what features you end up getting are ultimately going to depend on which trim level you go for, but the styling of it is kind of nice. It's kind of got this rounded look inside, carrying it forward into that beautiful grille, and I kind of like the look of it. It's fairly unique what they've decided to do with this thing. All right, taking a peek underneath the hood. So first impressions, this thing actually looks pretty nice. Like, it's nice, it's clean. They didn't actually choose to go for a big cover. Like, we've got a tiny cover right along the very top, and it's not a bad thing, as there are some manufacturers, they're hiding all the beauty, the components, the mechanical engineering side of things. I love what Hyundai's done with this thing. It pops nicely. Now this vehicle, the Kona, does have 2 available engine choices, depending on which trim level of the vehicle you're looking at. We've either got a 2-liter naturally aspirated, so a non-turbo, or a 1.6-liter turbocharged engine. Now, the 1.6-liter turbo is going to be exclusive to the N line of the vehicle. We're looking at the preferred version, which again is the SEL, which means that we're looking at the regular 2-liter engine. From a power perspective, this 2-liter engine is going to be able to push at 147 horsepower and 132 pound-feet of torque, while the 1.6-liter turbo is going to be able to push out 195 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. So plenty of power when it comes down to it in both of them. Now, when it comes down to a few of the other components, it's actually kind of interesting because everything's laid out nice and simply. Like, we can easily top up some fluids if we need to, we can easily check our oil, and then we've also got easy access to the battery. Now, a few things to point out are lights. It looks like we've actually got pretty easy access. If you ever need to change a bulb yourself, you may have that flexibility. Most likely have to go back to the dealer though for some of those lower bulbs just because of the positioning. But it does have a nice look overall. Now, filling up fuel inside of the vehicle is pretty straightforward. It's just along our driver's side, so we've got a little cutout there, but one of the cool things is that it is locked. So we just have to hop inside in order to be able to unlock this thing. Now, when it comes into the fuel quality inside of the Kona, regular 87 gas is the minimum manufacturer's recommendation. You don't need to use a higher octane fuel inside of this thing. But having said that, you will notice a slight improvement in performance when you do. So a little bit more horsepower, a little bit more torque. Now, one thing to note, if you're looking at the N line, so the 1.6-liter turbocharged engine, you're going to have to care for that engine a little bit more meticulously. More specifically, turbocharged engines across the board, you're going to want to make sure you're changing your spark plugs a little bit more frequently as well. All right, next up, taking a peek at the key fob of the vehicle. So it's got a fairly nice look. So we've got our logo along the back there, emergency access key we can easily get to there, just pop that out if we need to lock our glove box, things like that. And looking at the front face of the fob, so we've got our lock button, our unlock button, our remote start, as well as our horn or our panic alarm button. So kind of neat. Now, in order to be able to remote start this thing, we just need to make sure that the vehicle's locked, and we're just going to press and hold the middle button there. So as you can see there, remote start is now active. To cancel the remote start, we just press that middle button there, that circle button, again once. As you can see, remote start is now canceled. Now, getting inside of the trunk of the vehicle is an interesting thing because the Kona does technically only have one option to do it, and it's going to be a manual liftgate, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing just because of the amount of value you get inside of these things. So just underneath the H, so that main company logo there, you go underneath, and we've got a little button there to pop this thing up. But nice, big, beautiful look. Now, we do have a little cover there, and that's just a basic privacy shade. But if you need to, I don't know, maybe store a few things, and this thing's kind of getting in the way, it's pretty easy to actually uninstall it. We've got a few different things right along the top. We're just gonna pull those off, and we can literally take this thing out. Like, look at how simple that is. But let's have a quick peek at the cargo dimensions. All right, so cargo dimensions for the vehicle are going to be showing up. So as you can see, we have a nice amount of width, depth, and height of the vehicle. Now, there are a few different measurements that we can look at as well. And a few reasons why, because we can actually take this tray, we can slide it out and move it down a little bit. So it gives us a few extra inches of space a little bit further down. It's kind of an interesting setup that they've decided to do this, but those couple extra inches, they might matter. Now, moving out a little bit, we can just pop this right on the very top there as well. And a few different measurements for the actual height. We've got one from the bottom of the tray there to the actual loading area, and then another one that's slightly more inside as well. And that's just all based off of when the second row is folded down, because we get a couple extra inches of space when we're a little bit further in and we go up. So we can stack boxes up a little bit higher than the loading area is going to let us. Now, folding the second row seats down is also pretty straightforward. So we've got some latches along the very top. We can just pull those in order to be able to fold the seats down. But look at the difference there in the depth when we've got that second row folded down. And one of the nice things is that it's a 60-40 split, so 60% driver, 40% passenger, so we can fold down one side or the other if we need to. All right, now, a couple other things to point out. So we do have a couple of hooks down there, so we can throw on a cargo net, things like that, if we need to tie some things down. Moving this thing out, though, it's gonna toss this cover off to the side there, but we do have our mini spare tire. We've got the jack and everything else that we need. And there also is a handy cargo net down there as well, so really, really nice that we've got that option. Otherwise, nothing off to the left-hand side. Off to the right, we've got a tiny little storage area there, so cute little storage compartment off to the one side if we need it.
Taking a peek at some standard technology. So we're always going to have a backup camera, and that's a North American standard. We do have the option for a reverse sensing system in some of the higher trim levels of the vehicle. We don't have the option for a forward sensing system though, but we do have the option for that blind spot monitoring system. So that lets us know if anybody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. We do have the pre-collision assist system, and that's going to literally help us by hitting the brakes if the vehicle senses a potential collision. So we can see that forward sensor there. And then we also have some other great technologies. So things such as the lane keeping and the lane follow assist, and then a few other things. But one of the nice things, we also have the option for a heads-up display in some of the higher trim levels of the vehicle as well.
All right, now taking a peek at second row spacing inside the vehicle. So I'm 6 feet tall, driver's seat set up for somebody who's 6 feet tall, and I've got a decent amount of knee room, decent amount of foot space as well. Up overhead, it is a little bit tight. Like I might have about an inch, maybe an inch and a half roughly of head space. So taller people, it might be a little bit tricky because these seats are also locked into place. So we can't recline them, can't move them forwards, backwards, whatever the case may be. So they are locked into place. So definitely something to think about. But I mean, at the same time, if you typically don't have passengers, you've got a young family, whatever the case may be, it's not going to matter regardless. So a few other things to point out back here. We do have a pocket along our passenger side door there. We've got our basic window buttons there. We've got our handle up overhead. We've got our pillar assist handle. And then we've also got a nice little hook along the top. We can control what's going on with the cabin lighting in the rear there. Always a nice touch. And then just in behind there, so in the middle seat, we can pull this down to reveal a few cup holders. So we've got 2 different holders there. And then even along the actual doors there, so the driver passenger side in the second row, we do have a few small bottle holders there as well. Now, one other thing to note, we don't have any other buttons back here otherwise. Like there's nothing behind the armrest there. So it is a little bit more basic in the back here, which not necessarily a bad thing because again, the amount of value that you get inside of this vehicle, I think it makes up for some of the other things that aren't included. Right now, we do have our intelligent access. We can press this button in order to be able to either lock or unlock the doors there. And just popping ourselves in there, let's take a peek. So a few things to point out. So along the very top there, we can adjust our side view mirrors very easily. We can lock or unlock, kill off power to the rear windows, and then we've got our basic window control there. We've got a little storage area there and a little bottle holder along the driver and the passenger door. Now, as we actually start to move inside, so we've got a series of different buttons just to the left-hand side of the steering wheel. Very first one on the left-hand side there is going to be for the instrument cluster screen. So we can make that brighter or darker. We've got the hill descent control as well as our traction control system. So we can turn that one on or off if we'd like to. As we start to move down, we've got our hood latch there. So we're literally just going to pull that in order to be able to open up the hood. All right, so first impressions of the driver's seat. This thing is actually pretty nice. It's fairly comfortable. The headrest is pretty nice too. It's almost like I got a little pillow back here. This is kind of cool. All right, so a few other things to point out. The passenger seat itself is going to be a manual adjust. Driver's seat might be manual, might be powered, depending on which trim level of the vehicle that you're looking at. So we've got a few different levers and toggles and things like that. So very first one is actually going to bring the seat up, and we can also lower it down as well. So with the seat lowered all the way down, which typically that would be the positioning that I would have, like being 6 feet tall, up overhead in the lowest position, I've got about 4, maybe 4 inches of headspace there. It's about, I'd say maybe even technically 3, because we've got the sunroof there as well. So, I mean, it's kind of like a split there overhead. So definitely something to think about, but fairly comfortable. Now, the steering wheel itself across the entire vehicle lineup is going to be a manual adjust. So there's a little lever by our left knee there. You just crank that down and telescopic. So once you've got that perfect position, click it, log it back into place. Let's kind of start off on the very top. So very top there, as you can see with our turning stick, we can adjust what's going on with our lamps there. I just recommend keeping it on the auto setting, and then we can turn our fog lamps on or off there as well. Pull in towards us for our high beams. Off to the right-hand side, we can figure out what's going on with our windshield wipers for our front ones, and then we can twist this in order to be able to get our rear ones going as well. We're going to pull in towards us for the front wiper fluid. We're going to push away for the rear fluid. Looking along the left-hand side, this is where things get a little interesting, and I'll explain why. Because we've got a voice command prompt there, which when we press that, this thing is literally going to be useful if we want to be able to do things like use Siri as our assistant there. So we do need to be hooked up through Android Auto or Apple CarPlay in order to be able to use our assistants by pressing this button. Looking at our mode button there, that's going to let us switch out between a few different modes. So you can kind of see that we can set what's going on there. So we can set it up so that when we press that button, the Sirius XM, does it cycle between Sirius XM, AM, FM, etc. So we've got a few different options that are available to us. We've got our volume rocker, so we can kind of go up and down, which, speaking of what, let's do a quick audio test. Kind of nice song, all right. We can seek between different stations by moving this up and down, and then we can literally press and hold it if we want to be able to seek that way as well. So it is kind of neat that we've got some flexibility there. We can also mute out by pushing this button in the middle there in order to be able to turn the volume off completely. This one is going to be able to give us the option of either answering or hanging up on a phone call. And then we've got a unique button, which gives us the option of doing pretty much, well, I shouldn't say anything, but we've got some options. So we can push that button in order to be able to end phone calls. We can change devices. We can set up a voice memo and things like that simply by pushing this button. So we can kind of set it for more or less what we'd like it to do. Looking along the right-hand side, we've got a few different buttons there as well. Now, this first one is going to let us cycle between active pages inside of the middle screen. This one is going to let us go up and down between different things. And then if we push that one in the middle, if we press and hold it, that's going to reset all of our info. So if we had accumulated info, perfect example. So we press and hold the OK button there, and it's reset the value for us. So really that simple. Now let's actually go through before we get to the adaptive buttons there. So we're going to start off with our different pages. So going down, so we've got our digital speedometer there, which is always nice. We can press and hold to go to miles per hour instead. Pushing the button again, we've got some basic drive settings. So we press and hold OK. And we've got some driver assistance settings. So we've got our reaction time, so fast, slow, our warning timer as well, our warning volume. So for our driver assistance, so is it going to happen, yes or no? And then is there going to be volume or any sort of a warning with that as well? Our driver attention, so if we start to veer over into a lane without signaling, we will have our driver attention warning it starts to kind of go up. So once we get to a certain number, we're going to get a warning letting us know that we should probably take a break. Moving back, we've got our forward collision system. So if the vehicle senses a potential collision with active assist enabled, it's automatically going to brake for us. We can have it so that there's just a warning or so that nothing happens. Really a matter of preference. With our lane safety system, so we've got the assist, which is going to gently nudge us back into our lane. We've got a warning, which will just let us know as we start to veer over, or we can turn the system off as well. Our blind spot system, so that lets us know if anybody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. And we've got our safe exit warning. So if the vehicle senses there's somebody coming off to our side as we go to open the door, it's going to let us know. So we can either have that actively assist, a warning, or nothing happens. Our park, so our rear cross traffic alert. So as we go to back up, if the vehicle senses a potential collision, it's going to let us know if somebody's coming from our left or right. That's going to be the basics of our assistant settings. So we've got our attention level, and this is the one that I was telling you about earlier. So each one is going to represent every time you kind of veer over without signaling. Once that gets to that high level, it's going to let you know you should probably take a break. We've got our tire pressure, which we have to drive in order to see that, and we can see exactly what power is going to which wheel as we go as well. Pushing that again, we've got some more settings. So we've already seen these driver assistance settings there. Moving down, we've got our cluster, so we've got our wiper light display, icy road warnings, a welcome sound when we turn the car on, and we've got some different themes that are available. So this is literally going to be the themes that are available as we go through different drive modes as well, but we can select whatever theme or what look and colors we'd like. Moving down, we've got some basic for our lights. So we've got the illumination there, which we can either increase or decrease the cluster of the screen there, just off to the left-hand side there. Moving down, we've got our one-touch turn signals, so we can go 3, 5, or 7 flashes, or just a single flash. So we go left, single flash, versus we're on 7. So it's literally going to go 7 times. So, I mean, you got some flexibility as to which one ends up showing up. It's going to be a matter of personal preference there. Moving back, we've got our headlight delay as well. So when we go to lock the vehicles, do the lights stay on? Our door, we've got our auto lock. So that means that as we go to shift, or when we hit a certain speed, then the vehicle is automatically going to lock the doors and unlock when we shift it into park with the vehicle turned off or off completely. And then our 2-press unlock there. We've got our convenience, so rear occupant alert. So when we go to turn the vehicle off, it's going to let us know that we should check the back seats to make sure there's nobody back there. So nice little safety setting there, but we can easily turn that one on or off if we'd like to. And that's just going to be back in our convenience settings. Yeah, convenience settings. Auto rear wiper. So if we've got our front wipers going and we shift the car into reverse, with this setting turned on, it's automatically going to turn on our rear wipers for us as well. And then we can select our service intervals. Moving back again, we've got our units. So speed unit, kilometers or miles per hour. We've got our temperature unit, so Celsius Fahrenheit, fuel economy unit, we've got some options there, tire pressure unit, etc. And then reset, we can bring everything back to our factory default settings. So if you've kind of played around with settings a little bit too much, we can bring it back to our default instead. And that's going to be the basics of our screens there. So it is pretty straightforward. Now looking off to the right-hand side a little bit more, we've got a series of other buttons there. So this one is actually going to turn the smart cruise control system on or off. So we have to start driving in order to be able to turn it on, and then we can set our speed by pressing plus or minus. So we set our preferred speed, and what's going to happen is if the vehicle in front of us starts to slow down, ours will automatically slow down. If they pick up speed or get out of the way, yours will pick back up to that set speed again. We've got our distance indicator, so how close or how far are we away from the vehicle that's in front of us. And then we've got the actual lane centering system. So that's the one that's not just going to bump us in our lane. It's literally going to steer the wheel for us as we go. So you lose attention for a second and the vehicle recognizes the lane markings. It's going to take us around a bend, the curve, whatever the case may be. So it is a very, very great system and a good safety option there. We don't have to drive with it on, but it is a great system to really get the hang of things. So honestly, I recommend just kind of playing around with this one. And once you figure out how this actually works, I think you're going to absolutely love it. So that's kind of the steering wheel and looking at the instrument cluster and things like that in a nutshell. This is the typical home screen that we're going to be met with. If you're not on the home screen, just press the home button along the very top left-hand side there. We've got our basic summary. So what station are we currently tuned to? We can tune this way. We can tune a few other ways as well. So it is kind of neat. We can kind of jump back and forth this way if we want to. We can seek down there if we want to go that route. But I mean, pretty straightforward. So let's go through some of the basics there. So we've got our menu, phone, and then setup. So let's kind of go screen by screen. Starting off, well, we've actually got our phone. So we're going to go actually menu there. So we can go display off, which we do that, and it just kills off power to the display. So if you find it too bright, distracting, whatever the case may be, we can turn it off if we want to. We can press the back button there, and that's going to, again, bring us back to this default screen. Jumping into the menu, let's, I guess, start off. It's pushing us into our phone. So we're going to go phone there. And we've got our Bluetooth preferences. So this is what we're going to do in order to actually be able to set a phone up. So it's actually not that difficult. So first thing we're going to do is literally make sure that Bluetooth is turned on our phone. We're going to make sure that hands-free calling and Bluetooth are also enabled that way as well. Once that's the case, we're going to hit OK.
Turn Bluetooth on from your device in order to search. On your device, select the name that matches vehicle name on the screen.
Thanks, car. So what we're going to do is make sure we click Kona on the very bottom of our phone there, so other devices. And we're making sure that these numbers match up, which they do. So let's hit pair. Okay, do we want to allow contacts and favorites to sync up? Yes, we want to allow that. And we're connected. So it's asking me one more question. Do I want to use CarPlay with Kona? So yes, because we've got wireless. So let's use CarPlay. Watch this. Watch this. This phone supports Apple CarPlay. Yes, we want to connect to it. All right, using CarPlay. So we want to hit next there. Okay, watch this. Okay. Oh, I'm so excited right now. Okay, look at this. We've got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto inside of this vehicle. We've got our Google Maps, we've got Apple Maps, we've got Waze. We can use literally any of these map applications in the middle screen. And I'm actually super surprised that that's the case. Like, because inside of the Kona Electric, it's still wired, but we've got wireless inside of the Kona regular gas engine. So it is nice to know that we've at least got that flexibility. So taking a peek, we've got quite a few different options that are available there. As you can see, we've got my Apple Maps, as I mentioned, we've got my podcast, and we've got a number of other things. So we do have some flexibility for the actual screen itself. So if we actually look on our phone, if we go to our general settings, we click on CarPlay, we click on Kona, and we can customize now. So let's say if you have a tendency to maybe listen to your podcasts a little bit more, you like your audiobooks, you just kind of do a drag and drop. If you're deleting things, you can reorganize, delete some things, but whatever you've deleted is going to be in the very bottom there. If you've deleted a little bit too much, we can just do a reset in order to bring it back to our factory default layout there instead. So look at that. We are there. All right, so I love that flexibility. Now, we can literally just press this Hyundai button in order to be able to get back to this main screen again. We can go to our all menus, and we've got a few other options. So I want to show you one other thing. So we go to setup there. We've got our device connections. We've got phone projection. So we can see that my phone is now connected there. So we can disconnect if we want to. So it's disconnecting Apple CarPlay. And it really is that simple. We can reconnect very simply as well, simply by pressing that button. Reconnected. Like, I love how silly and simple this thing is. We've got a few different options for our Bluetooth connections, but we'll get there in just a second. From this main screen again, and we can just jump into our all menus, or on the main screen, you saw that we had the Apple CarPlay there, just launching us back into CarPlay. So it is nice to know that we've got quite a little bit of flexibility there. And then when we press the voice command prompt on the steering wheel, as you can see, we've got my Siri Assistant activated there as well. So it is kind of nice to know that we can rely on our Siri Assistant in order to be able to do things like make phone calls, etc. So I love that fact. Now, removing a phone from the vehicle is pretty straightforward. So what we actually have to do is go to the main screen, and actually we can press the setup button here. I always forget about this one. We press the setup button, we go to device connections. Phone projection is where we can go to disconnect or delete the phone from CarPlay. So we're going to go delete for a second. Yes, let's delete it all. Delete everything, all of the things. All right, there we go. So it's deleted from the vehicle. Now if we go back into our setup, device connections, we've got my Bluetooth connections, and we've got my phone connected there. But if we go back for a second, we've got different connection priorities. So if we had multiple phones connected, we can drag and drop which one we want to have priority for connections. We've got our Bluetooth voice prompts, so we can mute them or play them. We've got our different privacy modes, or we can reset everything as well. And that's the basics of how you set up an iPhone and connect to Apple CarPlay inside of this vehicle. Right now, connecting an Android device is literally the exact same process. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to Bluetooth connections there, and we can add a new device as well. So we're literally just going to do that. Okay, so we're adding a new device. We have to make sure, so hands-free calling and Bluetooth audio are there. So they are. We're just going to hit OK. All right, so it's disconnecting the first phone.
Turn Bluetooth on from your device in order to search.
Okay.
On your device, select the name that matches vehicle name on the screen.
So vehicle name is there, so we just want to make sure we connect to that.
Bluetooth pairing unsuccessful.
Oh, it's because I clicked off of the screen there.
And try again.
All right, hold on. Here we go. Press OK, and 3, 2, 1, pair. There we go. Perfect. And now it supports Android Auto as well. So do we want to connect to Android Auto? Yes, we do. It literally is that simple. So we're going to hit yes. Watch this. Watch how simple this is. We're going to allow our contacts. We want to continue with Android Auto set up. Look at this. It is so simple. But we are now fully connected there. So we've got our basics. So for our Google Maps settings, we've got our traffic, satellite, about, route options, things like that. We can jump into our main screen there as well. We've got our podcasts, we've got our notification center, and then our Google Assistant button there as well. So that is kind of neat because we've got some flexibility there. So we've got our maps there if we want to. So we can literally run off of the map application instead of, well, I guess we don't have factory nav, so we'd be running through our map application there if we wanted to. But very similar to the iPhone side of things, we've actually got a little bit of flexibility when it comes down to the way these things are actually set up. So on your phone, you're just going to search for Android Auto. I'm going to click through to the settings, and we can customize our launcher there. So we can literally drag and drop a few things. So if you want to listen to your podcast, etc. Now, one thing to note, whatever we end up doing here, we actually have to physically reset Android Auto in order for this thing to actually set up the way that we'd like it to. So definitely something to think about. But I mean, it's not impossible to kind of customize some things, delete some things that we want to do. We've got our Google detection, we've got our daytime mode if we want to go that route. We can disable our maps, weather, things like that as well. So we do have quite a little bit of flexibility there as well. And then again, in order to be able to get back to the main screen, we just press the manufacturer button there. That brings us back to the main screen. We can button press to get back into Android Auto. We can go into our setup. We've got our device connections there again, which we go to phone projection. We've got both phones there. We go to our Bluetooth connections. We've got both phones connected. We go to our auto connections. So this is where we can set the priority. So which one is going to be connected first? So we can kind of select whichever one we'd like to there. Moving back, if we wanted to delete connections, it's actually pretty simple. So we've got both phones there. We're just going to go delete devices. We're just going to mark and, oh, you know why? Because I'm connected the other way. So we're going to go delete for a second. Yes, let's delete. Deleted. Delete devices, unable to, oh, that's why. I was like, why isn't this deleting? Android Auto, this is what'll happen. Phone projection, we've got to disconnect from Android Auto first. It's like, I think that's exactly what's happening, but delete device, boom, delete, yes. Like, look at how simple this is. 3, 2, 1, we are now disconnected there. So we don't have any Bluetooth devices connected anymore. We've got nothing connected to Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, which, if we go to our menu, it's there as well. So it's deleted both of them, and it really is that simple to be able to set a phone up, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay inside of this vehicle. Okay, now we've got our phone connected, so like I said, pretty straightforward. We've got our Blue Link, so we've got our vehicle diagnostics, maintenance, and then our Blue Link settings as well. So it is kind of nice to know that we've got some flexibility for the actual service itself, but we do need to have a Blue Link activation, which means that we need to download that service onto our cell phone. Once we've got it connected, we can see exactly what's going on there. We can remote start our vehicle and things like that directly through our cell phone instead. And that's going to be the same way for our maintenance settings and things like that. We've got our radio, which, look at this, look at this, look at this, ah! All right, so nice and simple. We've got our AM, FM, Sirius XM, so these are going to be all of our presets. We can literally tune to whatever station we want to and simply press this button there, the star, in order to save it as a preset. We can scan this way. We've got our different band modes, so AM, FM, Sirius XM, etc. And if we had other things connected, they would also show up as options there. So that's where our media comes into play. So if we had a USB stick with MP3s, that would show up as an available option as well. Android Auto, Apple CarPlay are now grayed out, and that's just because I've got both of them disconnected. We've got a voice memo, so if we want to make quick notes, we can easily do that as well. Moving back, we've got our quiet mode, and that's literally going to put things to sleep. It's going to decrease them all automatically. Kind of nice. Lullaby, lullaby. We've got our valet mode as well, so we do need to have the Blue Link set up, but the valet mode, what that's going to do is it's going to not give valets the option of being able to kind of scroll through our screens and things like that, so it's going to lock some things out, which is kind of a neat thing. We've got our basic setup there, so, well, basic, but we've got quite a few options. Like we jump into our sound, we can figure out what's going on with the positioning there. We've got our tuning, so we've got our treble, mid-range, bass, basic guidance as well. So it's kind of neat because what's going to happen is as we go to reverse, if there's different driving priorities that we've got set, it's literally going to lower the volume for the audio in order to let us know about whatever's going on. The beep that we're getting here, if that drives you nuts, you can turn it off there as well if you wanted to. We've got some other things, so system volumes, so a number of different options there. So we can figure out exactly what's going on with each individual volume, which I think is so neat. Like, they thought of so many great, small little details. For our connected devices, what happens there as well? So we've got different options there. Moving back, we've got speed-dependent volume. So it's going to adjust the volume as necessary depending on how fast we're going. Startup volume limit. Let's say if you've cranked the volume, you've turned your car off. When you go to restart it, it's not going to start it up with a crazy loud noise. So it's going to go just kind of based off of a smaller noise there. Our radio noise, we can also change some things out. And then we can reset everything back to our default settings again. That's going to be the basics of our sound. We've got our device connections, which this system looks familiar because we've already seen it when we were under our phone. We've got our display there. So we've got a few different options. So automatic means the vehicle is going to flip us between our daytime or our nighttime mode, just depending on how bright it is outside. Automatic means it's going to automatically do that, or we can lock it out to one mode or the other. we've got a blue light filter, which is so cool that we've got that option. When we do that, we've got a few other things that are available there as well. So definitely useful driving later on at night. We've got our screensaver, so I do recommend, so you can go digital clock, analog clock, whatever the case may be. But when we go to turn the display off, we've got some different options on what's going to show up there. So it is kind of neat that we've got a little bit of flexibility as to what's actually showing up. On our home screen, we can literally kind of drag, drop, and figure out what's going on, what's showing as well. So if you've got some apps and icons and things like that, we can figure out exactly what we want shown up on that screen. Media change notification. So as we go to change media, it's going to let us know. Extended rear camera use, and then we can also reset to bring everything back to the factory default screen instead. We've got our basic buttons, so we've actually got a few different ones. We've got two technically on the steering wheel, and then we've got a customizable button down there as well. So what happens when we press that button, or the steering wheel buttons as well? We can literally figure out what's going on with it. So we can kind of customize our own button, which I definitely think is a nice thing. We've also got our basic general settings, a few other things. So we've got our system updates, system time, date time, etc. So if you prefer GPS time, we can go daylight savings time, or if you prefer that military time, so the 24-hour mode instead, we can switch to one mode or the other. Language, we can go between English, French, Spanish, or Korean. Keyboard, we've also got a few other options there. We've got our Blue Link. So Blue Link is a neat one because the vehicle is equipped with an onboard modem. So when we've got those services enabled, it's literally going to act as a wireless hotspot. So it is kind of a neat setting that we've got available there. And we've got our Wi-Fi connection there as well. We've got some basics for our climate. So we can recirculate the air, or we can have the vehicle automatically ventilate as well, so dehumidify for us. Moving down a little bit, we've got single zone climate control, very basic setup. We've also got our air conditioning, air circulation. Moving down a little bit more, we've got a USB power point. We've got a 12-volt power point as well. Kind of neat. And then we've got a series of different drive modes, and it's kind of neat. Like we've got our normal, sport, or smart mode, which is like an eco type of a mode. The sport mode, inside of anything but the end line, is where you're going to want to live. And the big reason why is because it's going to let you rev the vehicle up a little bit more. So I shouldn't say it's going to let you do it. The vehicle's going to do it by itself, but it changes the shift points. So it's literally, you put your foot down, it's going to rev up higher, giving you a sportier performance. So definitely a nice thing. I mean, which one you go with is up to you, but I personally always recommend the sport mode, especially with vehicles that have smaller engines. Moving down a little bit, we do have our heated seats for the driver-passenger side. There is a heated steering wheel, and then we've got our auto start-stop button. So that's the one that's potentially going to kill power if we're stopped for an extended period of time. We can turn that one off, but just to note, if you turn it off, when you turn the engine back off and you turn it back on again, you will have to push that button again. So it doesn't permanently stay off, unfortunately. We do also have a four-wheel drive lock, and that is a cool one because this thing is available either front-wheel drive or optionally all-wheel drive. When we're in all-wheel drive, that's when we've got that all-wheel drive lock. Huge benefit because we can lock it out, because intelligent all-wheel drive means the vehicle is going to figure out which wheel needs power, and then it's going to kind of adjust it as necessary. With that lock, it's permanently going to be locked into four-wheel drive all the time. So definitely a nice thing. You're going off-roading inside of, maybe it's snowing like crazy. That's where we're going to want to use that lock. Moving down a little bit more, we've got our electronic parking brake. We're going to pull up to turn the brake on. We're going to hit the brake pedal, push down in order to turn this thing off. So pretty straightforward. We've also got the auto hold setting, which I love that setting because we put the car into drive with auto hold on. I literally have my foot off. Like, I wish you could see this right now. My foot is off of the brake, off of the gas, and the car is being held in place. And the big reason why is because of that auto hold setting. As I roll forward, I just started racking a park, that's why. But it's because of the auto hold setting, because what's going to happen is it holds the car in place. Like, think of it, if you've ever driven a manual transmission, a vehicle with a manual transmission, you've thrown it into neutral when you're on flat ground. You don't go anywhere. That's the same idea. But moving down a little bit more, we've got a few cup holders and a little storage space. And then moving, we've got a tiny little armrest with a little bit of storage space there as well. Ooh, now, as we start to move up overhead, so we've got a few different things. We do have our tow mode. We've got a call there as well. And we've also got our SOS mode. Mirror, it's not auto dimming, so it's an old flip style there, which, and here or there. Up overhead a little bit more, we do have a sunglasses holder. Nice, slow lower, and clicking that back up. We do have a sunroof inside of some trim levels of the vehicle, and it's not a full panoramic roof, but it does open things up nicely. Like, this is so nice looking. Down she goes. Bam. All right, here we go. Now, a couple other buttons up overhead. We can figure out what's going on with our cabin lighting, so we can have it off completely, have it on whenever the doors are open, or we can have it on all the time. Your call. Up overhead a little bit more, we've got our visor, and we do have a little light that we can control ourselves, which is kind of neat. We've got a little business card holder. We've got a vanity mirror as well. And we can also extend this. We can click this thing out, a little bit stuck, and we can extend it out a little bit more if we need to block some sun from hitting our face. Click it, log it back into place. And that's going to be the basics of this thing. Let's take it over a quick spin. All right, now time for the fun part. Going to be taking this thing for a little bit of a spin. So this is the smaller, so the 2-liter engine. So thing number one that I'm going to do is turn it into sport mode immediately. And the big reason why is because that changes our shift points, which gives us a much sportier performance, a much more sportier feel as we go. All right, so first impressions, it's actually fairly responsive for a smaller engine. Like I said, like this is a 2-liter non-turbocharged engine, so not a ton of power. But having said that, when you put it in that sport mode, those added shift points, it changes up the overall dynamic of the ride. Oh! Okay. Now, when you get into the 1.6 liter inside of the N line, it's like a night and day performance. Like that's like a 20, almost 25% bump in performance by going to the N line instead. So if you're looking for something a little bit sportier, check out the N line version of the vehicle, or you can check out a number of the other vehicles inside of the Hyundai lineup. I actually want to try out the manual mode right now. It's kind of neat. So literally, like I said, like you literally just drop it into drive, move it over into the S, so that gives you that shifter mode, which means we can kind of jump up and down between gears as we want to. It is kind of interesting though, like driving manual while not in a car that's got manual transmission. It's very interesting. Like it's not like it's overly difficult to do. I love it. Like I do love it. What's this guy doing? What you doing, fella? Oh, you're just being weird. All right, that's cool. Bam. Oh, interesting. Okay, so it shifts. Okay, I was going to say, it sounds like it shifts out for you as well. So if you're kind of hugging onto that gear a little bit too long, it's literally going to shift out for you as well. And does it shift down? 3, 2, 1. Okay, so it shifts down for you when you are in that manual mode. So definitely a nice thing to know. And I was like, what just happened? Auto start stop happened. And I've also got the auto hold setting on, which means I can relax my leg for a second. Legs stretched out. And that's one of the cool things about some of the technology that are inside of these cars. Like I've got my foot completely off the brake right now. The car is in drive and it's literally the auto hold setting that's doing it. So it's holding me in place. And because I've got the auto start stop feature currently engaged, the car is technically turned off, I guess you could say. Like the engine essentially is in sleep mode right now. So, I mean, it's a gas saving measure. A lot of manufacturers do it. I do wish that we had the option of being able to permanently turn that thing off, but we can at least kind of do it ourselves if we want to by pressing that button. So whether you do it or not is a matter of choice, but this thing is fairly comfortable. Now, I was in the Kona Electric, and I gotta say, I was shocked. I was shocked at how well that vehicle behaved. Like, it had a surprising amount of power to the thing. And when I was in sport mode inside of the Kona Electric, like the wheel slippage was happening. Like in sport mode, this thing was so powerful that it was having trouble getting traction. Like that is mind blowing. Like I absolutely love the fact that these things are getting so powerful, and these guys are doing such a great job on these vehicles as well. I love it. Whew. 'Tis a bright light. Light bright, bright light. Whew. There we go. 3, 2, and beautiful. All right, I can see again. Oh, that's great. So like I said, I'm fairly surprised at how comfortable this thing is. And that's one of the interesting things is like how much stuff you actually get inside of these vehicles at the price point that you get it at. Like I am very surprised. Like we've got heated seats, we've got a heated steering wheel, we've got a smart cruise system, so an adaptive cruise control system. And this car in Canada costs $30,000. Like that's absolutely mind-blowing for the stuff that you get inside of it. Because you look at other manufacturers and you're paying $40,000, $45,000 to get similar features. So, I mean, which way you go is ultimately going to be up to you. But if you're looking for a car with good value, great feature sets, this thing should probably be on your radar if you're looking for something a little bit smaller. Okay, Smart Cruise is on. Distance indicator, how close or how far away. Okay, here we go. Okay, setting it at highway speed. There we go. All right. Now I've also got that lane centering system turned on right now as well, so let's see how well it works now that it actually will be able to recognize the highway marks. And exactly that, like it's keeping me perfectly balanced in my lane. My hands are hovering over the wheel right now, but they're not on the wheel, and like I'm literally perfectly balanced in the lane right now. Like this is so cool. I love it. I love it. This is such a neat feature. Ah, this is great. And yeah, so we came over a little bump there, a little turn, and it kept me right in my lane again. Oh, okay, good. I was like, what's happening right now? And then it gave me a message letting me know that I should put my hands back on the steering wheel. So general safety settings, like this thing is not self-driving. It's not at that stage, unfortunately, just yet. But it is nice to know that it's almost there. So very, very close. And there we go. Well, folks, that was a quick look at the 2022 Hyundai Kona. What did you think? This thing, like I said, feature set, and for the price point, I am genuinely surprised at what you get out of this thing. But what were your thoughts on it? Like, is this a vehicle that you can see yourself in? Let me know down in the comment section below. Which trim level of the vehicle do you think you would go with? If you have any questions, drop down in the comment section below and let me know. If you enjoyed the video, thumbs up, share it with your social networks, and until I see you next time, take care. Well, starting off with some exterior styling of the Kona. So this thing has a nice look to it. It's nice, it's tight, it's calm, it's toy like a Toyota.